I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for March the 20th, 2024. You can all rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, get roll call done. Commissioner Packard.
Present.
I know Commissioner Holt. Commissioner Jennifer Davis.
Present.
Hey, Commissioner Dewar here. And I know that Janice, looks like Janice just joined. Hey there.
I am here.
Present.
All right.
Fairly.
Do we have anybody on for guest business? Right. The first, did everybody get an opportunity to take a look at the minutes last meeting? I do sincerely apologize for my absence. Yeah, that's embarrassing. I sincerely apologize. If we can get approval for the minutes.
May I please? Would we, just to make sure that we're keeping this in line, would we make sure that we note that I was manning the meeting, not you, and that we approved your absence? So it reads that you were manning the meeting, which you were more than welcome to do. And I'm very rusty, I will say, so.
Appreciate it. Any other questions? All right. We have a motion to approve. Right, and a second.
As amended.
Right, thank you very much. Move on to the first discussion item. That's the review of the comprehensive plan. Sorry. All in favor of approving the, I'm sorry, all in favor of approving the minutes from February the 21st.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? So moved. Now moving on to item number 5. That's the review of the comprehensive plan.
All right. Thank you, Chair Davis. Commissioners, David Levitan, Senior Planner. So we are here tonight to do a little bit of work on the comprehensive plan updates, specifically review a draft of the public services and utilities elements. As I'll note during the presentation, over the next couple of months, we'll be reviewing all of the different chapters or elements of the comprehensive plan and getting initial planning commission feedback. We'll also be doing some additional engagement related to several of these topics. And so I'll give a little bit of an overview on that. But just a little bit of information for those of you that don't know. So we currently have 8 individual elements plus an introduction within our existing comprehensive plan. There are both mandatory elements and then optional elements. The public services and utilities element is a mandatory element under the Growth Management Act, at least the utilities component of that. Basically, the GMA requires us to identify the location and capacity of all our existing and proposed utilities, sewer, water, stormwater, everything else. Want to make sure that we have the appropriate infrastructure to accommodate projected growth within the city over the planning horizon, which for this periodic update is 2044. This element also, in addition to utilities, it examines public services such as police and fire. For those of you that have been on the Planning Commission for a bit, we do an annual docket. I think everyone on here has been on for at least the 2023 docket that was approved back over the summer. And so we've been keeping this element pretty updated over the last 10 years. We've been doing annual updates to it. And basically that's cut down on the scope and really the need for major updates as part of this periodic update. So we think we're in a pretty good spot, and we've been able to focus just kind of on more surgical edits as opposed to having to completely rewrite it. So as far as items that the city is focusing on as part of this periodic update, as a reminder, the city did a gaps analysis of its current comprehensive plan back in the spring and summer of 2023. As it relates to the utilities and public services element, it found it to be in pretty good shape. It identified a couple of areas where we were currently lacking, including kind of a more comprehensive analysis of our utility infrastructure and its ability to meet our growth targets. Then also there have been several state laws that were passed as part of the 2023 legislative session related to climate change and equity, and incorporating those topics into our comprehensive plan. I think, as I mentioned at a previous meeting, we are not adopting a standalone climate change element at this point. We are required to adopt that by 2029, but as part of this periodic update, we are incorporating climate change adaptation and mitigation related policies into each of the individual elements. So we'll be highlighting some of those. We did provide and present on some potential climate related policies. Some of the initial feedback was that they were a little bit too general in nature. So we've kind of gone back into the sustainability plan and really tried to focus on items that kind of are tailored to Lake Stevens as opposed to being kind of pretty generic, maybe more appropriate for larger cities, really trying to tailor those to things that we can be doing and items that we can really focus on over the next several years to try to meet some of our the goals and policies within the climate and sustainability plan, which we'll be incorporating into the comprehensive plan. So just a little bit of overview of the updated element, which is included as attachment 1 in your packet. So a lot of new background information, really just updated demographics, but also a major focus on House Bill 1181, which relates to climate change adaptation and mitigation. Jill produced a number of new maps just to bring those up to date. Those hadn't really been touched since 2015. And so we wanted to make sure we had all the current boundaries and service areas. As I mentioned, a big component was especially on the water and the sewer side of things, those being the limiting factors for potentially inhibiting growth and the ability for the city to grow within, really within the basically sewer service and water service is really limiting as far as our ability to grow. If we aren't able to accommodate our residents on those two fronts, it's really hard to sustain and to be able to claim that there's a nexus, or basically that there's the ability for the city to grow. Discussion of climate change topics is in there. There are a number of new policies within there, and also some narrative related to some of the recent changes. And then a number of specific new policies, which I've called out there, including related to equity, kind of collaboration with the school district on education programs. I'm really trying to incentivize the transition to clean energy and other ways to adapt and mitigate to the effects of climate change, and then improve climate resiliency and adaptation. So just a little bit on the infrastructure question, because this is really, I think what it really all boils down to is do we have adequate infrastructure in place to accommodate our projected growth? So what we looked at was both the Lake Stevens Sewer District and Snohomish County PUD prepare basically comprehensive plans of their own, or master plans related to the areas that they serve. So the 2022 sewer and wastewater facility plan that was prepared by the Lake Stevens Sewer District does show that there is adequate treatment capacity through at least 2041. That assumes about a 30% increase in wastewater treatment demand between 2021 and 2041. So it doesn't match up perfectly with the planning horizon of the comprehensive plan, but it's basically the information that we have. It's always offset by a couple of years. It does show that at full bullet, so as of 2041, there is adequate capacity, basically just underneath that basically 5 million gallons per day of treatment is what their federal permit is for. By 2041, we'll be just underneath that at about 4.94 million gallons per day. And then at full community build out, it bumps it up, but that would be more at kind of at 2050, 2055. So we do have adequate infrastructure capacity on the sewer side, and we'll continue to work with the current sewer district and any future iteration of that to make sure that we stay current on meeting our future capacity needs. On the water side of things, PUD prepared a water system plan. It's called the 2021 plan. I believe it was adopted in June of 2022. It does show a projected deficiency in water storage capacity by 2030 within the Lake Stevens Water Service area, but there are specific capital improvements identified as part of that plan, including 3 new storage tanks within the Lake Stevens Water Service area. So that does show that with those proposed improvements, that there is adequate water infrastructure capacity to accommodate our projected growth through 2044, or at least through 2040. And again, the planning horizon is slightly different. Yeah.
Looks like the plant is rated for about 5 million gallons a day. And that at times there are peak surges well in excess of that. Does that go into some sort of surge tank, or does that just go into like the river, or how does that?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding of, I'm not an expert on wastewater treatment. I think that it kind of averages out on the maximum month, and then there's like basically there's ebbs and flows to that, so it can go up above that for a limited duration, and they're still able to handle that. But I'm happy to get a little bit more information as far as kind of what happens when you exceed, because yeah, they're definitely, when you look at the numbers and you look at that peak hour, I think that's a peak hour that's equivalent then over a day. And so if it were to continue at that hour after hour after hour, then obviously you would probably have some problems. But really it's that monthly rate that they use to really assess their ability to accommodate sewage treatment requirements.
I appreciate that. I know we don't have control over what the sewer plant does and how they plan, but it is a little concerning that at times it looks like we do have surges like that. And as long as it's not going into the lake and going into the river, that's okay. But we need to give them a boost to encourage them to maybe up their capacity.
Yeah, and that's basically what they're rated under their permit. My understanding is there would be additional capacity. And so we have not seen the updated MPDES permit yet. That's currently being finalized now. I think it's due by July of 2024. And so we can definitely, by the time we adopt the comprehensive plan, we can try to reflect if that permit, if their permitted treatment capacity has been increased as part of the July 2024 permit, then we would be able to reflect that. It's obviously, it's not going to accommodate a peak hour of 12 million gallons per day. But it at least, has the potential to increase that capacity a little bit. It really depends on what they're permitted for at the federal level.
Mike, if I may, I can't hear any of your questions. So if anybody is asking a question, would you make sure that you're speaking into the microphone for my benefit, please? Thank you.
One other question is, and maybe I'm reading this incorrectly. There was Snohomish County release. It was a 2021 WSP final. It was linked within the document that you provided us. They give the system capacity a capacity limiting year of 2030. I mean, maybe. Yeah, so it's just, there's that year of 2041 roughly, and it was page ES5 in the 2021 water system plan through Snohomish County PUD.
Yeah, so that's the capacity limiting year based off of their current infrastructure.
Okay.
And so then as part of that, as part of their master plan, their 2021 water system plan, they needed to identify capital projects that could help to accommodate the projected growth at least through 2040, because that's the planning horizon for their water system plan. And so, yeah, if they did nothing, we basically wouldn't have enough storage by 2030.
Got it.
But they basically have identified three new tanks, which obviously adds a lot of capacity for a service area of about 55,000 or 60,000 people, I think, is within the Lake Stevens water service area. It includes the city, some unincorporated areas, kind of heads out towards Granite Falls a little bit. Yeah, they've indicated, necessary improvements to at least provide necessary capacity through 2040. So yeah, just as far as next steps. So obviously we're wanting to get some initial feedback, anything on the analysis on any of the goals and policies, topics that we're missing. So we're wanting that feedback from the Planning Commission tonight. We'll also be circulating this back out and incorporating any feedback from the Planning Commission into the version that we send back out to outside agencies. Make the document available for public review and comment. And then obviously as we go through different elements, different chapters such as capital facilities and transportation, and especially land use, we're probably going to need making some additional updates to make sure that they're well aligned and internally consistent. There's the potential for some of the policy language to shift around. It's hard when you're doing kind of chapter by chapter to know exactly where some of these policies, especially related to climate change, are fit best into the plan so that you don't have too much redundancy. So there might be some shifting around of policy language, but those are all things that as we bring it back for kind of a more comprehensive review for the Planning Commission, we'll have it in, better shape and, have a more comprehensive analysis of all our policy needs. Just a little bit before we get into kind of the discussion and the ability for commissioners to provide their feedback. Moving forward, we're going to be presenting one or more draft elements per meeting. Your next meeting on April 3rd falls within spring break. I won't be here. Some other staff won't be here. I would imagine there may be some conflicts as well within commissioners. So we're proposing to not have that meeting and instead have the optional meeting on April 17th, where we'll be reviewing the environment and natural resources element, as well as the chapter 1, which is the introduction. And then just looking forward, we do anticipate needing both meetings per month for, starting May, June, and July, and hoping to get through the bulk of the plan in those 3 months as far as the individual element reviews. There are a couple of dates. June 19th is a holiday. And so we would not have a meeting that day. We could look for an alternative date that week or the following week. And then July 3rd is probably not an ideal day to hold a meeting. I would imagine there might be some availability issues with commissioners. So we'll look at an alternative date for that one as well.
Pause you here,
Yeah.
Dave. So like last year, you'll recall we switched our planning commission date to Mondays, I believe, to not interfere with the market. That probably wasn't
Okay.
on your radar.
Okay.
So if the commission is willing to do that, that's something we should look at again to make sure that you can continue getting your business done without interference. It didn't work well when we shifted to that small building a couple of years ago. So that would be my recommendation. We
Okay.
can adjust these dates that Dave has just shared with you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That worked out great. Too many distractions out there.
Yeah.
Our next meeting will be the 17th. So this isn't for the April one. Our next meeting, correct? And then I was more identifying the couple of the meetings in June and July. So yeah, sorry for the confusion, and just to add maybe some unnecessary, discussion, but just wanted to get that on your radar as it related to kind of the master schedule for the project. And then, in addition to the Planning Commission review, also looking at identifying some dates. Once we have the elements kind of more complete and sharing those and some of the findings, we specifically want community feedback. We anticipate there being community interest, obviously related to housing. We have kind of some defined tasks related to the Lake Stevens Industrial Center and the potential for that area to really accommodate a lot of our employment growth. And that's really, there were some topics identified during the sub-area planning efforts last year for the industrial center as far as how to incorporate that analysis and build on it as part of the comp plan. And so we're looking at hosting an event related to that. And then transportation, which we have Transpo Group is our consultant on that, and they're doing a lot of the analysis right now and going to be working on a whole lot of components related to transportation. So we anticipate that would probably be the last event, probably sometime potentially in June or July once they've kind of gotten through all of their analysis and started to propose some updated goals and policies, as well as they're doing a whole lot of transportation modeling and really taking the land use assumptions and incorporating a multimodal component as well, beyond just single occupancy vehicles. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. So just wanted to get it on everybody's radar and then hopefully be able to kind of let you rest and regroup, at least partially during the month of August. And yeah, but we'll continue to update you on the schedule. And so as far as requested feedback for this evening, obviously would, like the Planning Commission thoughts on kind of the draft element, including some of the new policy language, some of the new analysis. It doesn't have to be topic specific. If there are kind of structural elements, structural components of the elements, just as far as things that you think would make it improve the readability. Obviously, those are items that we can incorporate into other elements as well. Topics that you want to make sure that we're covering that you think maybe the current proposed language is a little bit light on. So that would be great as well. And there is no action needed tonight other than kind of your general feedback. We will be bringing this back before you later in 2024, along with the other elements that have gone through their first round of review. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and welcome any and all feedback.
A question has to do with the, sorry about that. My question has to do with the proposed language at 7.1.3, the equity language. I'm definitely in favor of the city considering issues of equity and including language like that in our comp plan. But my question was, so it reads identify strategies to improve equitable access. And I'm just curious I realize the comp plan is not the place to really drill down on who's going to be identifying, but how does that work? If we set that as a goal inside of our comp plan, what's the body inside the city that is tasked with that effort ultimately?
Yeah, so we obviously would,
Is it like the council or?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ways you can do it, obviously, and really implementation of that either through policies or programs of the city is something that we would need to come up with. I mean, the comp plan kind of provides the policy foundation. So Russ, I don't know if you have general thoughts on.
I do. If you look at 7.12, and then the crossed out 7.12 that's below that has the language, coordinate with special purpose districts, coordinate with local and regional service providers. So I think if we provide that link, and that's really what we're trying to do, is just make them aware of some equity requirements. Since we don't provide, sewer services, they would have to take on that responsibility. We don't provide water service.
Right.
Those groups, really the only utility we provide is surface water, and we should be prioritizing surface water projects. Obviously, with that as one of the ranking things we look at. So we can do that in our own internal ranking process very easily, just working with our public works department. But I think if we added that additional language, like those other two policies, that we just do sort of an outreach, and we can do a summary letter, a summary table to send out to those other agencies to make sure that they are aware of our philosophy on this. So I think that would sort of help bridge that gap if something like that would meet the needs.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a brief question if we have them. Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce, go ahead.
Yeah, so I read through all the changes and I think it all looks good. But I do think there's one opportunity. I'm not sure if it will be for this document, but with regard to public utilities and climate change, the sewer, the water, well, the sewage treatment plant on 204, they blow off methane there and they burn it. So you see, as you drive down, you see this flame just shooting up. Now, they do that because it's better to have carbon in the air than methane in the air. Because it's, the methane is much stronger greenhouse gas, but wouldn't it be better to capture that? I'm not an expert in sewage treatment, but I just see that as just a waste of this heat just blowing in into the air when that methane could be captured and somehow reused in another way. So I don't.
We could ask that question. I mean, again, that's a little bit out of our control, but we can certainly ask that question and it does make sense.
Well, the sewer's about to be coming in to the city, right? Or not the sewer, the wastewater.
It is
Imminent.
But that's
Under
a controversy
consideration.
in itself. Yeah.
Okay. Very diplomatic.
That's a great point.
So are you talking, just to clarify, are you talking about capturing the methane itself or capturing the energy from the combustion?
Either way.
Okay,
Like
Okay.
cogeneration facility kind of thing.
Yeah, I would think that, they providing either heat or power to something.
And it also,
Neighborhood or something. I don't know.
there's sequestration as well, where they would capture the methane and then sort of pump it back into the ground as like a reverse well. So I mean, there
Another way.
are things to do, but yeah, we can broach that.
And I think they do go over that within their general plan. They talk a little bit about that, so we can definitely, there is some discussion within their 2022 plan, so we can pull that out and see what exactly they have to say. But no, that's definitely a good addition and something specifically related to climate and energy and energy.
Commissioner Huxford, you had a question?
And it was brought to me by someone that is in our community that knew that we were talking about this topic, but I don't know if she actually went through the packet. But with public utilities and stormwater and the rising lake levels, how does that marry into our comprehensive plan, and who does it fall on to mitigate damage to the waterfront residences and public space on the waterfront when we are, as a community of waterfront residents, paying an extra fee in our property taxes for that? And I hope I worded that correctly. I wrote it down at home and I don't have my sticky with me.
I will answer part of that question. I will leave I won't address potential property damages. That's way out of the scope of this. But in the city, in its capital facilities plan, which is part of the comprehensive plan, we do have several capital projects relating to, number one, the replacement of our weir out here to help control lake levels, working on the other side of Hartford, near Grade Road to establish a new old channel, reroute the outfall channel to a portion of its historic reach. So we are looking at significant surface water projects over the next year, that being the largest one that will help with lake level. And we can bring this back, and that will be part of the next discussion you'd be having with natural resources and the environment, that we can take a look at what is the effect of stormwater, and we can talk to our surface water division before we come back with that.
Thank you. I specifically think that she was talking because she thinks that Public Works manages all of that. And so she saw utilities and equated that, but I said I would ask. So thank you.
They do. That is our city
Mhm.
works department, surface water division's responsibility.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And it just points to kind of the multidisciplinary, obviously, aspect of the comp plan stormwater is technically a utility, but a lot of the discussion specifically related to the lake is more within the environment and natural resources section. So if we're missing some items within one element, it doesn't mean that the plan's not going to talk about it. But if there is some, if it's an important issue and it calls for some, some additional redundancy across multiple elements or chapters, that's definitely something that we can explore. But we'll make sure to address topics related to that on the 17th when we discuss that additional element.
Thank you.
I had just a general piece of feedback on it. I really appreciate how you went through and used the word tailored approach. That really feels a lot more germane to the city of Lake Stevens and its residents. And two words that stood out to me is encourage and incentivize. I really appreciated that versus the alternative, which is mandate and require. And I hope that we could continue kind of that positive movement of encouraging and incentivizing throughout the other elements of this plan as we go through this exercise throughout the spring and summer.
Yeah, no, that's good feedback. We appreciate that. And yeah, it is something that's, more the carrot approach.
Yeah.
There's already so many regulations and there's some of them are optional, some of them are mandatory, but on some of the optional items, we don't have, as a local jurisdiction, we don't have control over a lot of the topics related to this. So it's really trying to encourage people and provide a financial incentive. So that's, we're very focused in the type of language that we use.
One quick question that I read recently, it was a week ago, the New York Times had a big expose about the increasing demands on our electric grid all around the country. That with the growth of manufacturing hubs and in particular like data centers, that there's this like huge spike in energy demand around the country. Plug in, vehicles, switching from natural gas to electric inverter air conditioners. If that is being taken into account, I know like there are energy companies that are now building natural gas production or energy plants. If that's being taken into consideration for us to be able to meet these renewable energy sources, but to also understand the reality of where we may be heading, if that's a discussion that you guys have had.
Not so much that we've had, but I mean, PSC and PUD have definitely done that analysis, and PUD is planning, both districts, both organizations. So on the electricity side with PUD, they've obviously accounted for the planned transition over the next 2 decades towards more electric vehicles and towards the electrification of especially home appliances, and really the big push for ranges and everything else. But really the big one will obviously be on the vehicle side of things. And so they've incorporated that into their projections and their ability to meet the energy demands, the electricity demands for the region. And obviously they cover, pretty large area and, basically the entire county. So yeah, I think that has been, we can do some additional analysis on that. PSC is more interesting, obviously, within Snohomish County in particular. They're an electricity company as well, but not here. And they are very much focused on natural gas, which is a greenhouse gas. And so they have some ambitious goals as far as getting basically to net zero carbon and, not emitting, which will be interesting to see given that they're a natural gas company. But they are looking at chipping away, or at least ways to mitigate and to capture some of that. And basically what, I think talked a little bit about what they call renewable natural gas, which I'm still not entirely clear on, but yeah, no, both organizations, which obviously we're reliant on and need to partner with, and are definitely working on this issue and very recognize the importance of this issue over the 20-year planning horizon.
And I think as we move through this process, what you're going to see again, this chapter is a little bit hard to talk about because we don't have control over most of the elements, school districts, fire districts. We have control over the stormwater and the police that we sort of describe in this section as our utilities, but when we get into obviously natural resource and the environment, we are the direct advocates and managers of those systems. As we talk about our capital facilities planning, obviously that becomes our responsibility. And so as we move to enact some more however your philosophies are, more green techniques, you're going to see that in some of our engineering designs where we're going to be, how do we have more environmentally friendly engineering designs, going away from probably closed pipe systems to open systems. So we're going to be dealing with what happens with the vehicles on the roads and the impacts from, say, what comes off of the tires, the oils. So that's where we're going to be able to focus our energies as a city, and decisions we make on the equipment we purchase, and then obviously following the international building code and the preferences that it's giving now to switching over to electrical systems. So those are the kind of things we'll focus on. And I think, as David mentioned, though, with the rest of this chapter, we're going to do the best that we can to partner with our agencies. And all we can do is say our population or job growth aligns or doesn't align with these other agencies. And if it doesn't align with those other agencies, that's sort of where we have to have the conversation, either that we have to pull back or they have to step up. So,
Yeah, and so kind of circling back on Commissioner Dewar's, comments on kind of the language that we use in the incentivize, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the city is providing the incentive. I mean, it could also be as just informing our residents of incentive programs that are available, and really just identifying and being a source of information and a valuable resource for our residents and businesses, as far as these are ways that are both environmentally friendly and actually economically, feasible and actually beneficial to you as you start to explore, some of the changes that are proposed and some of the trends that are expected over the next 20 years.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Of one comment, just a typo, I think, page 16 of the packet. It's PS9 is the page, just the middle paragraph that starts with in December 2020. Are you
Oh, yeah,
the middle sentence, I don't know. Yeah, as of June 2024 through an expedited process, is that supposed to feed?
I think that's some of that accidentally got struck. So there was just a little bit too much track changes going on there.
Sure, there's
And-
just something funny, but yeah, it
Yeah.
didn't look right.
Yeah, I try not to create just weird sentence fragments that don't mean anything,
Sounds
but it
great.
happens periodically.
Uh-huh. The other thing is a more general comment. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, something similar, but I'm struggling to identify kind of anything concrete or substantial in some of the goals. So for example, it's mentioned a couple times, right, that we're rated the top 11% of the fire department ratings or whatever, right? Is that good enough? Like, what if we were in the top 35%? Would we have said good enough? And ultimately, I'm just thinking towards where we choose to allocate resources, right? We can't do everything. So yeah, what metric have we stated for ourselves there and in these other areas where we say, okay, this is good enough for now. We don't need to spend any more calories here. Let's go fix another problem in the city, right? And I get that that's difficult to do. Trying to figure out how we manage that.
Yeah, and again, it's obviously hard when we're contracting or when we're covered by a special service district that's providing those public services. And so kind of circling back on what Russ said, we can kind of highlight what they're doing and their ability to serve our residents and our businesses over the planning horizon. I think information like that was just basically to try to explain that we are in a pretty good spot as far as the quality of services that we receive, because that is something obviously we should be discussing with this element as well. It's not just that we provide them, but we provide high quality services. So but yeah, we can look at sections like that or some similar sections like that so that we, you know, there's obviously not going to be consistent metrics across the board, you know, for different topic areas, but it's, yeah, no, I appreciate your feedback that it's always good to be able to state, well, what exactly does this, that's great, top 11%, what does that mean? And so, I guess it means that we're in a better position than 89% of other communities. So,
Agreed. And so then, yeah, what do we do, right? Does that mean the next time there's a vote or, you know, an item on the ballot related to funding more firefighters, right? We say, we probably don't need to do that. We're in a pretty good position. Or, yeah, and I don't mean that as a particular political point.
yeah, and even just within that discussion, I mean, it might be more appropriate just to talk about our fire protection rating and that it's consistently gotten better over the last 15 to 20 years, because I think it started at a 5, then it went to a 4, and then
Yep.
after they combined, after Lake Stevens Fire combined and created, you know, Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue, their rating got even better. I think, you know, have additional resources available to them. And so, yeah, we were trying to provide just a general assessment of the quality of fire protection in the city, and that, you know, we are, you know, well served. And, you know, I think there is some additional opportunity within either this section or within the environment and natural resources, obviously with the increased potential for wildfires and even for urban wildfires, you know, just how we're situated for that and to, you know, really, you know, adapt to, you know, potential impacts of climate change.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the other one, and these again are just examples and aren't intended to be super targeted, but the electrification of vehicles, right, in the city, I didn't see a goal of, hey, we want to be 100% electrified by 2027 or something, right? So we could say, hey, we want to push towards this, but if that means only 1 out of our 50 vehicles each year, are we really doing anything? And I'm not trying to say we should be fully electrified in 2 years. That's not what I'm trying to say. Just again, there wasn't anything in the document that says this is our real plan. And this is what we intend to do. If you don't want to do that, that's fine, but it is ambiguous in terms of what is the city actually going to do towards making a change, whether one wants to call that an improvement or not.
Comment.
No, I appreciate that. I think, yeah, the more metrics we have, the better, just to have them actually grounded in, you know, specific goals that we wish to attain, you know, measurements, obviously, so.
There are no other comments. On to commissioners' reports. I'll start with Commissioner Packard.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Morton
I've got nothing.
and Commissioner Holt.
Actually, I don't have anything except for I might be going to Norway this summer to visit family. Not sure when we're gonna do it. But, you know, with COVID and stuff, we weren't able to go, so. And considering my mom's from Oslo, my dad's from Sunnis outside of Stavanger, and I've got family in Oslo, Sunnis, Stavanger, Bergen, Voss, and Trondheim. It would just be fun to go and then maybe take a side trip to Portugal.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite sure when we're gonna do it. I'm waiting to hear back from my cousins, the best time to come. So,
Stay safe from the trolls.
Yeah.
oh, they're my friends.
Commissioner Jennifer Davis.
Nothing from me.
Right, Commissioner Dewar
Nothing for me tonight.
and Commissioner Huxford.
Briefly, the annexed folks on South Lake Stevens in that area are asking if we could get an update as a group on the speed limit issue and when the electronic signage that was ordered and received 3 months ago is going to be installed. And I don't know if you have an answer for that right now, but I've been asked again to ask during this meeting.
I don't, we can ask the question, but I would suggest they target those directly to our Public Works Department.
They have, according to them.
And this past week, a couple of weeks ago, ran into Mayor Gailey, was talking with him about the downtown, the project to turn it into a roundabout. He said that was going to be delayed. There's some federal money, but bottom line is it's not going to be happening in the next several months, maybe a year or so. I mentioned the crosswalk again. And it's just one of those things I walk through every day, brought kids through running club through that intersection. There are two visible stripes or strips on the west side heading west. That's one where, love to see the city, take some efforts to update that crosswalk on all four, well, I guess the two free crosswalks that exist there. Just to make sure that they're visible. I see kids going through there every day and cars just jetting right in front of them.
Again, I would recommend reaching out to our Public Works Department and letting them know directly so you can better describe the issue.
Okay. Awesome. Anything else? We'll move on to the planning director's report.
I don't have a report tonight. I'm happy to take any questions from the group.
And I would just note that we are next Tuesday, have invited the Housing Authority of Snohomish County to come and do a presentation to the city council. So that'll be on Tuesday. I believe they're second on the agenda after the food bank presentation. So I'd anticipate that probably at about 6:15 or 6:30, depending on how long that first presentation and discussion goes. But they're really going to be focusing on a lot of the projected housing needs in the city over the next 20 years, especially at the extremely low and very low income, including permanent supportive housing and emergency housing. And so we have Dwayne and Chris from the Housing Authority, which are much more subject matter experts than we are on these topics. So we wanted to bring them in before we really get into that discussion as part of the housing element. We had kind of introduced the housing growth targets and noted that we would provide some additional kind of foundational information related to some of the lower income housing needs. So I think this is a great first opportunity. So if there are commissioners that would like to tune into that or to attend, we would definitely encourage that.
And if you do plan on attending in person, please let Cody know so we can advertise that if there becomes a quorum.
Say again, when that is?
So it's on Tuesday, the 26th, just during the regular city council meeting. It should be right at the beginning during the presentation. So I think it's the second item on the agenda.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Third.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, Dennis.